So this guy here, you can just pry off with a small screwdriver, and same again, you can just pry this O-ring off with a small screwdriver and replace it. Once you have that done, you can just pop it back into your tap. Now, once you have this out, you may as well replace your washer and your O-ring at the same time. That way you shouldn't have to worry about it for another few years. Putting it back in, finger tight, and you can just snip it up with your spanner. Don't over tighten it, because that can split the O-ring inside, and it's also going to make it harder for you to take that out in the future. Put your shroud back on, your retaining screw, and your cap back on, and that's it. Now, the other type of tap that you can come across is a quarter turn tap. So, as you can see, literally just turns quarter of a turn. So that's opening and closing it. Again, to get into this guy, you just pop off the little cover and uncover your retaining screw. Once you have that out, again, you have the valve exposed. So your adjustable spanner, again, anti-clockwise to take it out. Now, these guys here have a little ceramic cart inside, so they're a lot more hard wearing than your rubber washers, so you're less likely to ever have to take this out to maintain it. Now, it does have a rubber O-ring on it here, so again, if it's leaking out of the top here, chances are it's that O-ring. If it is leaking out of the spout, it's quite possible a bit of grit has gotten in between the two ceramic parts here, or sometimes there is a little washer here that can degrade. But generally it's just a little bit of grit after getting in here, so you can just clear that out once you have the valve out. Again, put it back in, clockwise, just get a finger tight, and a bit of a nip up with the spanner. Your screw it back on, your retaining nut in, and then your cover back over that. Now, sometimes what can happen with those valves, similar to with the gate valve, there's a little spindle inside here that can crack just through use. So you can actually get replacement valves. So this one here is just with the rubber washer, and this guy here with your ceramic valve. Now, the beauty about those is, even if you have a tap with the rubber washer valve on it, you can actually get your quarter turn heads and put them into it. It's the exact same fitting. Now, the advantage of the quarter turn or lever taps is certainly for older adults, if they're starting to lose their grip, then it's a lot easier for them to just push the lever to the side and drag it back rather than having to open up the valve like this guy. Okay, so the two tools that you'll need for taking your tap off is your basin wrench here for taking off your feed pipe, and your back nut spanner for taking the back nut off the tail of your tap. Now remember guys, once you have your water turned off either via your gate valve in the hot press or the service valve and under your sink, always open your tap up to leave off any residual pressure and water left in the pipes, and you can then close it back up before you go to take your valve off. Okay, now we're just going to go through actually taking the tap apart in situ. So again, just need a small screwdriver to take your cap off, Phillips head to take out the retaining screw. Now again, remember to have your stopper in, and it's also best to have some sort of cloth over your sink just in case you drop any of the tools in, so you're less likely to mark it. So, remember to keep your eye on that guy. Now, once we have this guy exposed, we'll need to take it off. Now again, quick run through. If it's leaking out of the spout here, it's going to be the rubber washer down at the bottom of it, and if it's leaking out of here, it's going to be a rubber O-ring. And like I said earlier on, sometimes the spindle in these guys can crack, and what will happen then is you'll have sometimes water coming out of the top here, or this guy will keep twisting and it's not going to affect the inside, it'll stop it from raising or lowering. So in that case you can just get a replacement valve to go into it. Now sometimes all you might need is to hold your tap with one hand and use your spanner to take the valve out. You can also put a piece of cardboard or towel here if you have tiles behind it and you're worried about your spanner slipping. Now if it's too hard to take this guy off by just holding this with your hand, what you can do is get something and wrap it around the spout of your tap. And you can pop a lever over it like that. And the lever is just to help you have more of a grip on this, and the reason we put this on it is so it doesn't mark the chrome. Again, you can just apply more force to it then. Now once you have your valve out, again, you may as well replace your washer and your O-ring at the same time, so you don't need to worry about maintenance for a good while. Once you have them replaced, you can just pop it back in. Again, make sure you're holding the tap when you're tightening it back up. You don't want this to move, because that will affect the fittings underneath and they'll possibly leak there. Again, after you have the finger tight, just a quick nip with the spanner, tighten it up, and that's all you need. So once you have the water turned off and you've relieved the pressure through the tap up above, you can find where your feed pipe attaches onto the tail of the tap, and getting your crank spanner or basin wrench, put the 1/2 side around the nut and turn it anti-clockwise. It's best to have a bucket or a cloth in under it, because there will be some water sitting in the pipe and you don't want it going over your tiles or carpet. Once you have that off, you can get your back nut spanner. Again, if it's on a basin, you can use the 1/2 side. Again, anti-clockwise to loosen the back nut on it. There's a hole in the back nut spanner in case you need more leverage. You can just pop a screwdriver through that. Once you have your back nut off a little bit, you can generally loosen it the rest of the way with your fingers. Okay, so once you have your back nut spanner off, you can take your tap out. Now if you're replacing the tap, you will have to clean this area around here, so they generally will have put in some sort of jointing compound or silicone on this to seal it on the previous tap, so you have to make sure that's fully cleaned off. And before you put on your new tap, you should apply a little bit of jointing compound or silicone, and always make sure that the washer is on the top side of the tap. Then you can just press it back in place. Now before you set your tap back in place, it's always best to put some PTFE tape around the tail of your tap, so that when you're putting on your feed, there's going to be a seal between the thread of your fitting and the thread of the tail. So you put it on in the direction of the thread, usually clockwise, and roughly about 10 times on the bottom centimetre of the tail. Again, like I showed you earlier, when you're cutting it off, fingers either side and just shear it off like that. Put it on nice and neat and put your tap in place. So now you can put your back nut back on underneath. Again, you can generally just use your fingers to get it up most of the way. Then you can use your back nut spanner to tighten it up. Again, if you feel like you need a little bit more leverage, you can just put the screwdriver through the hole in the bottom of the back nut spanner. You just want to tighten it up enough so that when you're moving the tap up top, it doesn't move on the sink. Last thing you want when you have the thing installed is for the tap to move and for it to loosen the fittings underneath. So next, you can get your feed pipe and start threading it on. Again, you can generally start it with your fingers, and you can just tighten it up with your crank spanner or basin wrench. Again, because this is a basin tap, you can use the 1/2 inch side. Remember, you tighten it up clockwise. Okay, so after going through your basic basin taps, the next thing we want to go through is how to fit a monoblock tap. Very similar to the other types of taps, but instead of having a back nut spanner, you have this bracket here. So you're going to have a washer on the top side that's actually attached to your tap, and you're going to have a washer underneath. So this will go down through your sink. This washer here will then go on the underside of your sink, and then this bracket goes on over it. In order to keep that tight onto your sink, get one of these nuts. You can generally tighten it with your fingers up, and then you can use a miniature back nut spanner. Tighten it up the rest of the way to make sure your tap is nice and solid. Once you have it fit, you can get your tails, and these ones here just screw in. Now in Ireland, we use 1/2 inch pipes and 3/4 inch, so we still use imperial measurements. However, in Europe they use 15 mil and 22 mil, so metric measurements. So if we try and put our 1/2 inch pipe directly onto this, the fitting won't work. So what you will need to do is to get fittings that go from 15 mil to 1/2 inch. So your 15 mil will go on that side. Again, you tighten it up just like we showed you with the compression fittings earlier on. And then on this side, you just get your normal 1/2 inch pipe and slot that in. Now, another problem with these guys is if you're just after replacing a sink, so you've went from the 2-hole mixer taps to one of these monoblocks, chances are your feed pipes are going to be a lot wider than your tails on this. So to make it a little bit easier, you get rid of these solid tails, and you can buy these flexible tails. Now the other advantage to this is you don't actually need your reducer on it. These push fit fittings will go straight onto your 1/2 inch pipe, and you also have the added ability of flexing this pipe, so even if your feed pipes are wider than what you need them for this, they'll just go to where you want them to. Okay, just going to go through 2 handy things you can do if you happen to get a leak. Say for example you're putting down floorboards and you manage to put a nail through one of your pipes, or if it just burst for some other reason, you can just take out the affected section using your pipe slice. Obviously here I'm just splitting the pipe. Just make sure that either end that you're going to be fixing up, you clean off with wire wool so you don't have any grit or dirt getting into the fitting. This applies to both push fit and compression fittings, but the easiest way to fix this up is to just get the equivalent size in a push fit, push it on one side, push it on the other, and there you have a nice quick solid repair. Now the other thing you can use, again, if you can't find your valve to turn off the water, you're in a hurry, you can use this pulley here. You can plug a leak even on a mains pipe. Just remember, it's only a temporary solution and you are going to have to fix that properly in future. Okay, I hope you found this how-to DVD very useful. Don't forget, we have other DVDs to help you with your other projects. Now, this isn't the only source of information that B&Q can give you. You can also look at our You Can Do It book, our B&Q YouTube channel for handy videos, and you can also contact your local YCDI centre.